The time has finally come to talk about the second half of the Arrancar saga. And oh boy, is there a lot to cover. So this video is going to cover episodes 206 to 310 minus filler. Without further delay, let's go ahead and just jump right into it by reversing the pendulum. I feel like I've been saying for a while now that I've really been wanting to see more of Urahara and a couple of the other lesser known Soul Reapers. Well, it seems like Kuba was thinking the same thing, because right before we get into this huge war of Aizen's forces, there is a whole flashback arc taking place 110 years in the past. It was kind of weird at first seeing the Soul Society squads with different captains and lieutenants, until it became clear that we've actually seen a lot of these people before. So this arc is focusing on explaining how a bunch of Soul Reapers were turned into the Visored by Aizen as an experiment before he did the Arrancar. While another aspect of it is about Urahara becoming a captain and eventually a foil for Aizen's plan. And I gotta say, I did enjoy this part of the story quite a lot. It did a lot to establish the motivations of some of the more mysterious characters like Urahara and Yoruichi and the Visored, and we get to see the incident that turned the 8 Soul Reapers into Hollows and led both Urahara and Yoruichi to leave in Soul Society. Aizen, being Aizen, manages to pin everything on someone other than himself, which allowed him to remain incognito until the events of Soul Society. I was surprised to learn that Hiyori was a lieutenant under Urahara. Those two are just complete opposites of each other, so their dynamic was pretty interesting to watch. And spoiler alert, I don't remember those two actually interacting with each other later on in the Karakura town battle, so it feels like there's a little bit of wasted opportunity there. I don't know, maybe I'm just speaking too soon and they do meet up later in the story, but for now, I'm just going to leave it at that and let's move on to the main event. So this portion of Bleach is long. Most of it is fighting though, so I won't get into too many of the nitty-gritty details. I'll just be sticking to covering the highlights. So the first batch of fights we get between the Thracion and the not Captain Soul Reapers like Kira and Ikaku. And if I'm being honest, these fights really didn't do a whole lot for me. Yeah, it was kind of cool to see Kira using his gravity powers and Yumichika showing off his sword's real form. Other than those moments though, they were just kind of meh and forgettable. You know what was cool though? Not the captains fighting the top 3 of Arrancar. Okay, maybe that's a little harsh since I did enjoy these fights more than the ones I mentioned previously, but I just couldn't help feel a little disappointed in the end. I liked Halliabelle and her backstory quite a lot. Her fights against Hitsugaya could have been something special since pitting water and ice against each other is a cool concept. I think Halliabelle gets frozen in giant blocks of ice multiple times, which made her breaking free every time just feel less special. And no offense to Hitsugaya or anything like that, but I just don't really care about him too much. So having to watch him struggle to land a big enough attack in Halliabelle just felt like an exercise in my patience. Speaking of patience, I can't believe what they did to my man Baragon. This guy probably has my favorite design of all of the resurrected Arrancar, and for what? To get clowned on by Omeda? And I guess Soifan was there too. He's revealed to be the literal king of Huecamundo, with the ability to turn things into dust. And then he just kind of sits around forever until Soifan decides that she'd rather be embarrassed by having to use her missile launcher of a Bankai rather than die. You know what? I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. And then we have Stark, who I think fared the best of the 3 top Arrancar. Conceptually, I think his design and personality fit the theme of loneliness very well. His opponent Kiraku was perfect, both appearing laid back and chill at the first part of the battle and then becoming more serious over time was great. Eventually we get to see Stark unleash the wolves, which I did like to see. It really felt like the things could have gotten out of hand if it were not for Kiraku's use of shadows. There were a couple of other fights in the mix here that I did enjoy, like Yamamoto trying to take down Aizen, but then having to, fight Wonder Weiss instead. And actually, I think I can't help but feel like I might be forgetting to mention something right now. Oh, that's right. The Visored were there too. I mean, I'm glad they showed up, but I don't know. I just feel like they didn't really do a whole lot. This has kind of been a reoccurring theme for this part of my Bleach review. I went into the Battle of Karakura Town with high expectations, but honestly, most of the fights and character interactions, story progression, they all just kind of fell flat for me. But you want to know what didn't fall flat for me? I've purposely waited until now to talk about Ichigo's fight with Ulquiorra because that ties into the end of this arc and the fight against Aizen. And wow. There has been so much build up between Ichigo and Ulquiorra that it's just been insane to see. There have been a couple of times where it looks like they're finally gonna do something only for something else to get in the way. And let me tell you, this did not disappoint. Not only does Ulquiorra have an awesome resurrection, but then he has a second one as well. Is it kind of cheesy and overdone to make the villain look like a devil? Oh yes, absolutely. And I really don't mind that that's what's happening. So like, the fight itself was really cool and intense and fun to watch, but the craziest thing of them all was when Ichigo died? Or at least that's what the implication is. Because then we get to see a hollowed form of Zangetsu show up and flexes all over Ulquiorra like a boss. 10 out of 10, my favorite fight in Bleach so far. Sorry, Kenny. After going through enough trauma to last a lifetime, of course Ichigo does not have any time to relax because he has to get right back up, go to Karakura Town, and get ready to fight Aizen. While that was all going on, I did find some enjoyment in watching Aizen dismantle all of the remaining captains pretty easily. Maybe it's just retribution from having to watch all of their boring slogs of fights up until now, but I digress. But we finally do start to get some payoffs, some moments that I have been waiting for a while. First of which is we finally see Ichigo learn that his father was a Soul Reaper. And the two of them even get a chance to team up a little bit and kick some ass, which was nice to see. And secondly, we do finally get Aizen like laying out his plan and really showing how in control he's been the whole time. Aizen orchestrated everything from the beginning, getting Rukia to give her powers to Ichigo, the events of Soul Society, all just because he was curious to see how high Ichigo could go. Also, Aizen does seem to imply here that there's more to Ichigo's heritage than just being part human and part Soul Reaper. I'm sure that's going to end up being important later on. Oh, but Aizen, my dear lad, I think you might have ended up creating your own undoing here. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to when Aizen began to merge with the Hagyoko, or however you want to pronounce that. Having achieved everything he wanted, Aizen takes a victory lap and decides to go terrorize some children for fun. And I kind of have mixed feelings on this part. On one hand, Aizen wastes so much time just running around trying to terrorize children, and it started to become physically painful for me. On the other hand, we did get one of the most satisfying portrayals in all of anime. Gin. I have felt like Gin has been sus since the first moment we've seen him. And even after the ending of Soul Society, I felt like there was something about him that I just couldn't put my finger on. And it turns out he actually was scheming to undermine Aizen from the very beginning because of the way he treated Matsumoto and a couple of the other Soul Reapers. And I just loved the way it was set up, how Gin's Bankai worked and how he could just kind of remain incognito for a while in his Bankai state. So it is a huge shame that Aizen kind of just shrugs off what should have been a killing blow and gets back up with another power-up. Rest in peace, Ging. At least you tried. While that's all happening, Ichigo goes on another little training montage to learn the file Getsugan Tensho. Sometimes the names in Bleach are just a pain. But like, even this is a lot to process, so I'm not really going to dive into the nitty-gritty details of how it works. Long story short, we have Aizen becoming this angelic being. Ichigo uses his new form, sacrificing his Soul Reaper powers in the process to permanently take down Aizen. As a result of this attack, Aizen is not finished for good, but he is weakened enough to where Arrancar can capture him and put him in captivity. Oh, but man, when we see Aizen get locked up in prison, he just has the smuggest smile on his face. This man is never not scheming, I swear. So I'm sure this is not the last we have seen of Aizen. Ichigo, meanwhile, gets sick and loses his powers, becoming just a simple human once again. Which is what's going to lead us into the next arc, but that discussion's gonna have to wait for another day. Since this video is starting to get a little on the longer side, let's go ahead and just start to wrap it up. So the second half of Arrancar has been a mixed bag for me. There were certainly a lot of incredible moments, some of the best of the entire series. But the connective tissue in between all that didn't feel as strong as previous sections, and a lot of the fights really just felt like padding to me. Which is weird, because some of the stuff I would have liked to have seen ended up getting handled off screen, like Yami fighting Byakuya and Kenpachi, for example. I would have loved to have watched that instead of Omeda versus Tensho. But you know what, frustrations aside, I'm still enjoying Bleach so far. The main cast of characters are as likable as ever, and there's still a lot of mysteries that I'd like to see get resolved as we move closer to the ending. So in the next video, I'm going to be talking about the Fullbring arc and my thoughts on the anime as a whole, since this is the end of the original anime's run. Until then though, I've been Luton Kyle, and you have yourselves a great day. Peace.